Imagine a world where the deadliest substance on Earth is sold as a daily health supplement. In the early 1920s, radium wasn't a warning sign on a hazmat suit. It was the foundation of a multi-million-dollar wellness industry. You could buy radium-infused toothpaste to whiten your smile, radium cosmetics to brighten your skin, and even bottled radium water to cure your fatigue. The American public was completely obsessed with this glowing miracle dust, but no one was closer to the magic than a group of teenage girls working in a New Jersey factory. For these young women, landing a job at the United States Radium Corporation was like winning the lottery. They were paid 3 times the average factory wage just to paint glowing numbers on military watches and aviation dials. Because the watch faces were incredibly small, the girls' supervisors taught them a highly specific technique called lip dip paint. The painters were instructed to place the radium-soaked camel hairbrushes directly between their lips to bring the bristles to a razor-sharp point. The company directors practically guaranteed the glowing paint was completely safe, even suggesting that trace amounts of radiation would put roses in their cheeks. Trusting their bosses, the girls swallowed small amounts of radioactive material hundreds of times every single shift. At night, they were the envy of their towns, playfully painting their teeth and fingernails with the leftover dust so they would literally glow in the dark at local dance halls. They were known locally as the Ghost Girls, living an independent, glamorous dream that was actually a ticking biological clock. What these teenagers didn't know was that the safety of the miracle dust was a carefully constructed, highly profitable illusion. While the working-class girls were told to put the glowing paint directly into their mouths, the reality inside the corporation's private research laboratories was drastically different. The company scientists who actually manufactured the powder wore heavy lead aprons, handled the raw radium only with specialized ivory tongs, and worked entirely behind thick radiation-blocking screens. The executives knew exactly what they were handing these girls, but even they couldn't have predicted the horrifying way the poison was about to tear through human bone. The illusion of safety shattered in a dentist's chair. For one of the brightest girls in the factory, it started as a dull, persistent ache in a single tooth. When her dentist pulled it, the wound simply refused to heal, instead festering into a deep, painful ulcer. Soon, the tooth next to it had to be extracted, and then another, until a routine dental visit turned into a waking nightmare. As the dentist gently probed the infected gums, a large piece of her jawbone simply detached and lifted out, crumbling like dry ash in his bare hands. This horrific decay wasn't an isolated tragedy. Across the factory floor, a gruesome medical anomaly was rapidly unfolding among the young dial painters. Perfectly healthy teenagers were suddenly limping into work, their spines collapsing and their legs literally shattering under their own body weight. Nobody understood why their bodies were disintegrating, but the answer lay in a terrifying biological mistake. To the human body, radium chemically mimics calcium, meaning every glowing brush they had ever licked tricked their skeletal system into eagerly absorbing a lethal poison directly into their bones. Once embedded deep inside the marrow, the radium acted like a microscopic machine gun, relentlessly firing radiation that honeycombed the girls' skeletons from the inside out. Panic swept through the tight-knit community as more painters fell violently ill, desperate to find the cause of their agonizing pain. In what appeared to be a stunning act of corporate benevolence, the United States Radium Corporation finally intervened. The company executives stepped forward, offering to pay for an elite team of medical specialists to examine the dying women and solve this tragic mystery once and for all. The girls thought they were finally being rescued by the very men who employed them. They eagerly submitted to the blood tests, x-rays, and extensive physical examinations, trusting the corporate physicians to find a cure. But these doctors weren't brought in to save the dial painters, and the blood samples they collected were never meant to help them heal. The executives had already discovered exactly what was killing their workforce, and these medical specialists were secretly building a fabricated diagnosis so disgraceful, it was designed to ensure no one would ever believe a word the dying victim said. When the medical reports finally came back, the results were devastating, but not for the reasons the women expected. Instead of acknowledging the clear signs of heavy metal poisoning, the corporate physicians confidently diagnosed the dial painters with syphilis. In the 1920s, a venereal disease carried a suffocating social stigma, instantly branding these young, unmarried women as reckless and promiscuous. The corporation actively weaponized this shame, using the horrific fake diagnosis to isolate the victims from their own families and completely strip away any public sympathy. This wasn't just a tragic medical error, it was a highly orchestrated multi-million-dollar smear campaign designed to systematically erase liability. Behind closed doors, executives were desperately burying the real medical files and bribing local officials to falsify the autopsy reports of the girls who had already died. They literally calculated the cost of human life on a balance sheet, deciding it was far cheaper to ruin the reputations of dying teenagers than to admit their glowing empire was built on a lethal poison. The cover-up was absolute, and the U.S. Radium Corporation was just weeks away from getting away with the perfect corporate murder. The women were fading away as social pariahs, their bodies and their names rotting simultaneously in the dark. But just as the executives prepared to quietly close the book on the dial painters, one fiercely determined victim named Grace Fryer realized she had absolutely nothing left to lose. Refusing to die in disgrace, Grace spent 2 agonizing years searching for an attorney before finally finding a young, brilliant lawyer reckless enough to sue a billion-dollar titan. They had the evidence to tear the company apart, but there was one brutal, unavoidable problem standing between them and justice. The radiation was moving so fast, Grace and her friends might not survive long enough to see the inside of a courtroom. The ultimate David versus Goliath legal battle finally began, but it was less of a trial and more of a highly publicized death watch. When Grace and her 4 co-plaintiffs were called to testify, the packed courtroom fell into a stunned, horrified silence. The young women were so severely ravaged by the radium poisoning that they couldn't even raise their right hands to take the sworn oath. They had to be gently carried to the witness stand, their fragile bodies visibly crumbling under the relentless flashbulbs of the world's press. It was a heartbreaking spectacle of human decay, but the corporation's defense team felt absolutely no pity. Instead of showing remorse, the executives and their high-priced lawyers implemented a ruthless, deeply cynical legal strategy designed to stall the proceedings at all costs. They knew the girls were literally days away from dying, so they weaponized the legal system to intentionally run out the biological clock. The defense filed endless procedural motions, requested long continuances, and demanded completely unnecessary medical evaluations, dragging the trial out for agonizing months. Every time the judge granted a delay, the company crept one step closer to a dark, morbid victory. It truly seemed like the corporation was going to successfully wait out the mortality of their own victims, just as the defense aggressively moved for another catastrophic delay that would have undoubtedly ended the case. The young lawyer representing the women played his final desperate card. He knew the corporation had successfully shredded the internal medical files, bribed the local officials, and erased the paper trail, leaving him with almost nothing traditional to present to a jury. But the executives had made one critical, arrogant miscalculation in their meticulous cover-up. They forgot about a single piece of undeniable physical forensic evidence that could never be destroyed, and it was about to be dropped right onto the judge's desk. The undeniable evidence was the exhumed body of Amelia Maggia, the very first dial painter to die. When investigators opened her casket in the dead of night, they didn't find normal decay. Instead, her skeletal remains were physically glowing inside the coffin. Even after years in the earth, her bones were so highly radioactive that they literally exposed photographic film placed next to them. Confronted with the glowing proof of the woman they had publicly disgraced, the United States Radium Corporation's web of lies collapsed instantly. Realizing they were utterly defeated, the executives finally surrendered, settling the landmark lawsuit in 1928. It wasn't a massive financial payout, and for most of the girls, the money arrived far too late to buy them any real comfort. Grace Fryer and her brave co-plaintiffs survived just long enough to see their names cleared, passing away shortly after the trial ended. Yet while their lives were cut tragically short, the legal shockwave they created was just beginning to ripple across the nation. Their agonizing sacrifice fundamentally transformed the relationship between American workers and the corporations that employed them. For the first time in history, the law recognized that a company was legally responsible for the health of its employees, establishing the right to sue for occupational illnesses. This landmark case laid the direct groundwork for the modern workplace safety standards we take for granted today. saving millions of future lives. The Ghost Girls had successfully forced a corporate empire to value human life over profit. But the physical story of the Radium Girls didn't actually end when they were laid to rest. Radium has a radioactive half-life of 1,600 years. If you walk through the quiet New Jersey cemeteries where these women are buried today and hold a Geiger counter above the grass, the machine will begin to click frantically. They have been gone for a century, but deep beneath the soil, the bones of the Ghost Girls are still glowing in the dark, still telling their story and still refusing to be silenced.